There was a tin pail on the shelf by our spring house, and inside it sat a plain gray-white powder that my mother bought for less than the price of a dozen eggs, and that pail lasted us clear through the summer with plenty to spare. She would climb the ladder herself, apron tucked, and coat the north-facing wall of our spring house and the tin roof of our smokehouse with a thin milky wash made from that powder and creek water. And here is what I need you to understand. On the worst days of July, when the hens went quiet and the dogs lay flat in the shade and would not move, you could step inside that smokehouse and feel the air turn cool around you, the way a cellar feels in June. No fan turning in a window. No hum of a compressor. No slip of paper come at the end of the month asking for money, because there was no wire strung to that building at all. Just powder, sun, and water. Now, when I tell people this, they think I am spinning a tale to make the story pretty. I promise you I am not. What we brushed onto our buildings is the very thing people across the old world leaned on for thousands of years to survive their summers. It is also the very thing a team of scientists at a research campus in the Midwest spent years and a mountain of grant money trying to outdo. And before we're through today, I will tell you plainly why this powder sits on the bottom shelf of your hardware store for almost nothing, and why, in more places than you'd guess, a person can be fined for putting it where it belongs. That last part unsettled me the first time I heard it. It still does. So settle in. Let me walk you through it the way it was handed down to me. We never called it science. Nobody in our house called this chemistry. We called it whitewashing, same as you'd call a chore. Nobody explained a reason for it any more than you'd explain why you latched the gate. But there is a reason, and it isn't mystery, and it isn't superstition. It's about as plain as anything gets. You already know this in your body. Touch the hood of a black car that's been sitting in the sun, and you'll snatch your hand back. Touch a white bedsheet drying on the same clothesline in that same sun, and it's warm, sure, but it won't blister you. The dark surface pulled the heat in and held it. The pale surface threw the heat back out. That's the entire trick sitting right there in front of you. Our powder, painted thick enough, was so pale that it bounced most of the sun's energy straight back up into the sky before it ever had the chance to soak into the roof and creep down into the rooms below. What's actually in the pail? So, what is this powder really? It's limestone that's been burned and then slaked with water. Walk into any building supply store and ask for hydrated lime, type S, and you'll find it in a paper sack, usually down near the floor, usually ignored. It is stone the earth has been forming since long before anyone was around to notice. Nobody owns a patent on a rock. Nobody can bill you for rainwater. Hold that thought, because it explains almost everything else in the story. A practice older than writing. Long before it reached our family, this knowledge belonged to people scattered across the hot coastlines of the old world. Travel along those sun-bleached villages by the Mediterranean today, and you'll still see it. Every wall, every rooftop, painted a blinding white beneath a sun far angrier than ours ever gets. They didn't do this for beauty, though it turned out beautiful. They did it because a dark house in that heat would have cooked the people sleeping inside it. So they ground their local limestone, mixed it with water, and coated everything the sunlight could reach. Their homes stayed livable through summers that would otherwise have been unbearable. No machinery, no power line, no bill in the mailbox. This wisdom moved from parent to child for longer than anyone kept records of. It eventually reached quiet farming communities like ours, people who had chosen to live without the electric wire and still needed some way to keep a house from turning into an oven. We didn't invent the trick. We simply never let go of it while the rest of the world chased something new. When the humming box arrived, I want to be straight with you here, the way I'd want someone to be straight with me. For most of human history, this pale surfaces reflecting sunlight was simply how people stayed cool, us included. Then, roughly a century back, someone built a machine that could chill the air in a room, the kind that sits in a window frame and hums through the night. I won't pretend that machine has no value. On a thick, humid day, it can do something lime powder cannot touch. But here's the honest part. That machine could be sold to you once, for the unit itself. Then sold to you again every month through your power bill. Then sold to you a third time when it broke down and needed a repairman. The lime, on the other hand, got sold to you exactly once for a couple of dollars, and after that it only ever asked for a little water and a Saturday afternoon. One of those products builds a fortune. The other one just keeps your house cool and your wallet full. I'll let you guess which one got the marketing budget and which one quietly disappeared from conversation. What the instruments found. Stay with me, because this next part is the piece that genuinely stunned me the first time someone explained it. Back in the 1970s, researchers at a national laboratory out west took ordinary crushed limestone, the same recipe, nothing fancier, and coated a section of flat roof with it, then set their measuring equipment on that section and on a dark section of roof right beside it. The gap between the two readings was not small. It was not subtle. The white section stayed dramatically cooler, cool enough that you could feel the difference standing on it. The space below that white roof barely needed mechanical cooling at all through the hottest part of the year. A few dollars of powder outperformed equipment worth thousands. And understand, they hadn't discovered anything new. Their instruments only confirmed, with numbers and graphs, what village grandmothers on sun-baked coastlines had understood without a single gauge, generations upon generations back. What my own mother knew standing on a ladder with a bucket, no science degree required. The whitest white ever recorded. Years later, a research team at a university in Indiana set out to engineer the palest reflective coating ever created. They succeeded. The surface they built threw back nearly all of the sunlight that hit it, more than any conventional white paint had ever managed. And what caught the attention of researchers everywhere was this. A surface coated with it didn't merely stay cool under direct sun. It measured cooler than the surrounding air itself, in broad daylight, with the sun still overhead. It was recorded as the whitest material ever produced. Papers were published. News outlets picked up the story for a week or two. Then it faded from conversation almost entirely, and the world went back to buying air conditioners and standard paint, while a coating capable of cooling a building using zero electricity quietly slipped out of the public eye. Why does that keep happening? You already have the answer because I gave it to you at the start. Nobody can patent a rock. The combined paint and cooling equipment industries move a sum of money so large that stating the figure stops meaning anything to the ear. A product that costs a couple of dollars, lasts a year, and needs no electricity is a terrible fit for an industry that survives by selling you the same thing over and over. Things don't vanish from the market because they fail. Sometimes they get pushed aside because they work too well for too little money. The part that still bothers me. Here is what troubled me most. In a considerable number of neighborhoods across this country today, homeowners are legally barred from doing what families like mine have always done. Buried in the fine print of neighborhood association rules, you'll find restrictions against bright, white, or highly reflective rooftops. These rules push people toward dark browns and grays, the very colors that absorb the sun's heat, which then forces homeowners to run mechanical cooling to undo the damage the roof color caused in the first place. You can look this up for yourself. It isn't hidden. It isn't one dramatic law from a state capital. It's scattered through the governing documents of neighborhood associations, state after state, quietly requiring dark roofing and quietly prohibiting the pale roofing that would have cost families nothing. Nobody passed a headline-grabbing law against staying cool for free. They simply wrote it into paperwork most people never read until it's too late. So the cheapest form of comfort humans have ever known has, in a great many driveways across this country, become something you could be fined over. I'll leave you to sit with that on your own. I have opinions about it, and I'll keep most of them to myself for now. How to actually do this. Let me step down off the soapbox and hand you something useful, because a story without a use to it is just a way to fill 10 minutes, and that's not why you're here. Here's the process, and it's simple enough that a 10-year-old could manage most of it. On our place, the kids usually did. Head to any hardware or building supply store and buy a single bag of Type S hydrated lime. It will run you somewhere around $2 to $5 depending on where you shop, and one bag stretches a lot further than you'd expect. Pour a portion into a clean bucket and add water gradually, stirring the entire time until the mixture thins out to roughly the consistency of milk. Not paste, not thick paint straight from a can, but thin and pourable. Work out any lumps until it runs smooth. Using a wide brush or a paint roller, apply it to your roof if you can safely reach it. Mind your footing, no roof is worth a fall, or to the sun-facing walls if the roof isn't practical for you. Apply one coat and let it dry fully. It will look pale and unconvincing at first, almost translucent, and you'll wonder if you did something wrong. You didn't. Let it cure overnight, then apply a second coat. That second coat is where the true brightness shows up. 2 coats, properly dried between them, and the job is finished. A few dollars and an afternoon, much like the ones my mother spent every spring, singing to herself up on that ladder. Questions you're probably asking. Will this actually cool my house? It reflects away the heat trying to enter through your roof and sun-exposed walls, and in dry heat, that's the majority of your discomfort. A homeowner in a dry stretch of the Southwest tried exactly this on his roof, and the oppressive heat that used to build up in his attic dropped noticeably, cooling the rooms beneath along with it. His air conditioner sat idle far more than it used to. In humid climates, the effect is smaller because moisture in the air is a different problem entirely, and I won't claim otherwise. But against plain, direct sun on a roof, nothing this cheap comes close to matching it. Does it last forever? No, and anyone telling you otherwise isn't being honest with you. Weather wears it down over time. Plan on refreshing it with a new coat roughly once a year, typically in spring, the same rhythm my family always kept. That's the trade-off. This isn't a one-time fix, it's a small yearly habit, about as demanding as cleaning gutters or patching a fence line. Cheap, simple, and repeated. Is it safe to work with? Wet lime is caustic before it fully cures, and it can irritate skin or sting eyes if you're careless. Wear gloves, avoid your face. Treat it with the same basic caution you'd use around a hot stove or strong soap. Once it's dried onto a surface, it's inert and stable. Mix it outdoors, keep children and pets clear of the bucket, and you'll have no trouble at all. Why has nobody told me about this before? And there, friend, you already have your answer because I gave it to you at the beginning of this. There's no fortune to be made explaining that a rock can cool your house. Nobody sends you a monthly invoice for sunlight bounced away. Anything that can't be resold to you again and again tends to get left out of the conversation entirely. So a technique that kept entire villages livable for thousands of years and kept farmhouses like ours cool without ever touching an electric grid ended up forgotten on a bottom shelf, priced about the same as a loaf of bread. Before you go, if this shifted something in how you see your own roof, the way it shifted something in me the day I was first handed that brush, pass it along to somebody sweating through summer with a machine roaring in their window and a power bill they're dreading. Send it their way. That's the only reason this knowledge survived as long as it did, passed hand to hand, parent to child, neighbor to neighbor. It's the only reason it's still here to tell you. And if you'd like to keep hearing about the things older generations understood without needing a single machine, things that cost almost nothing and nearly got forgotten by everyone else, stay close. There's more sitting in that pail by the spring house than just whitewash. Next time, I want to walk you through the summer kitchen, that small second kitchen we built apart from the main house, and the simple reason it kept the whole home from turning into an oven during canning season. There's a lesson in it the world has mostly lost, and it never cost more than a handful of nails and lumber. I'll have it ready for you. Until then, keep your hands busy and your mind at ease, and remember, the best solutions were usually the cheapest ones, and usually the first ones we forgot. This is Nomi Yoder, and I thank you for sitting a while with me.